priceless experiences. Napa Valley wine tasting, spoiling my women friends. Sitting at the table with millionaires. The narrative is tax loops, accounts offshore squares. It's not allowed. Welcome back to Coin Gang Ministries. What's good? I'm your man Ken Billions. If you didn't know, if your first time here, welcome. And if you're a part of the family, welcome back. It's good to see your faces. Happy Sunday. Hopefully you are somewhere where you are being appreciated. Hopefully you are somewhere you are being loved. We follow a philosophy over here of top shelf or nothing. So if you can hear me fine, and if you can see me fine, press 1 and 2 in the chat. Run me my 12s, and then I'll know we're good over here. Right? So if you can see me, press 1, and if you can hear me, press 2. I want to say salute to you and your family, wherever you are in the world. Again, my name is Ken Billions. When I see them 1s and 2s in the chat, I'll know we're good. How you guys doing? What's good over there? Okay, my YouTube fam is in the building. What's good? What's good? What's good? What's happening? What's good, Sheba? Zach, what it do? What's popping, y'all? Prolific, how are you? What's good? What's up with y'all? Dark sister in the building. What's popping? All right. Got my Facebook fam in the building. What's good? What's good? How y'all feeling? What it do? Juan, what's popping, man? What's good with y'all? How y'all living over there? How y'all doing over there? Hopefully love is love, man. Yo, you know what this is, right? You know this is where you come in ordinary and you leave extraordinary. This is the #1 home for personal development. What that means is when you come here and you leave, you come and leave 2 different ways. There's an alchemical process that happens. You leave transformed. You leave going, You leave like, damn, I didn't know that, right? You leave, put it like this. I'm going to make sure that I deliver whatever more than what I get, right? So salute to y'all, all right? This is the home of personal development. This is ministry for the abstract mind. And this is a safe space for everybody out there with an out-the-box philosophy. I want to tell you, please, please keep your babies close. I cannot stress that enough. I don't care if they are 30 and 40 years old. They are still your babies. So walk with them, please. Walk with them in their marriages. Walk with them while they do school. They're going to give you a hard time because they're trying to establish their own identity, but those are still your cubs. Please don't do the you grown shit. No, they're not. Those are your cubs, and that is your cross that you have to carry. You brought them here, so take care of your babies, all right? If you got somebody in your life and y'all, going back and forth with each other, remember, man, y'all both ordinary, man. Y'all trying to figure this shit out together on each other's time. Right? It's a very difficult thing to be in relationships, to be smushed together with someone and try to grow and develop. That's not easy. So please be patient with each other. If you're on Facebook, right below, you should have a supporter badge right by your name. Stop playing with that supporter badge. What are you waiting for? How much game do you have to get before you know I'm the truth? All right. And this is the truth over here. If you're on YouTube, you can also have a membership. Why is that important? Because we're having membership conversations behind the scenes. And that's only for people that are members. So you don't want to miss that. The Cash App is your friend. The Super Chat is your friend. Now that we paid these bills, my person of the day today died the other day. My person of the day today is Mr. Bob Proctor. I got a lot of things to say about Bob Proctor. One thing I'm going to say is even in his 80s, this man was working hard, right? Even in his 80s, this man was working hard. He was live every day. He still had the spirit of a young man. Many of you might have seen him for the first time on The Secret, but he dealt with mindset. He always just kept it positive. Not saying that this man didn't have hardships in his life, not saying that he didn't experience things that we experience, but even in his 80s, he still had a youthfulness to him. My person of the day is Mr. Bob Proctor. He will be missed, but he put out so much amazing content that he'll live forever. So shout out to Bob Proctor. Definitely one of my go-tos. Definitely one of the people that have ministered to me and helped me with mindset. So I definitely want to give a shout out to Bob Proctor, who passed away 2 days ago. So shout out to him. Today we're going to continue our series, Triple B's. If you know what them triple B's are, go ahead and say them in the chat so everyone else will know. We're going to talk about understanding class in America, because I don't think we really understand class, right? But when this conversation is done today, you're going to have a firm understanding of what class is. We talk so much about race, but we don't talk about class. And that's what we're going to deal with today. We're going to talk about there ain't really no such thing as we. That is a myth, right? To say we as if to say that we are the same because of how we look. There is no we. And we're going to talk about the racial finesse. Our conversation today is a continuation of what we've been building on that ain't nowhere else building on. Those triple B's that we've been talking about. And if you know what those triple B's are, go ahead and run them in the chat to let everybody else know what those triple B's are, right? And that triple B is an offense to those that push the victim narrative, and it's an offense to those that push the meek shall inherit the earth philosophy. If you know what those triple B's are, go ahead and put them in the chat. Today we are finishing up with our series, Blacks Been Ballin', Status, Class, and Pedigree. Blacks been ballin', status, class, and pedigree. That's what triple B means. So if I say, give me a triple B in the chat, that means blacks been balling. And we know from what we have read, the previous 2 videos, that I'm not lying when I'm talking about blacks been balling. We see people owning businesses. We see people living in mansions. We see people real estate, thousands and thousands of acres. So we know that there is an agenda that is pushed to us that is to break our self-esteem down. We know that. We know that they're not telling the whole story. A lot of people don't know, but the ones that do know, it's not sexy to talk about that. Shout out to you for the super chat. I like to see that because it puts me in the spirit of capitalism. So when I see that, man, woo, that just puts me in the spirit. I just, woo, I do the Dougie. You know what I'm saying? I might do the Bat Watusi. You know what I'm saying? Do the electric boogie. You know what I mean? I love to see that. When you come through the door with it, oh my God. Man, that puts me in the spirit. So shout out to you. Right? So what we're going to talk about today is a continuation of what we've been talking about. But today we're going to get real surgical, right? Because what is balling, right? Balling is pedigree, balling is status, and balling is class. So what we think is that the rich blacks and the poor blacks are the same, because we're under this ideal of a racial umbrella. So we all say, we as blacks in America. No. It's always been about class. There's people that say the foundation of America is race. That's not true. You've seen me read the Doctrine of Discovery on this channel. We know that the foundation is religious and class supremacy. Race is the last one, right? What do y'all know about business models? Do y'all know what a business model is? From all my entrepreneurs out there, what is a business model? Well, let's find out. What is a business model? What is a business model? because this is how we're going to start. We're going to start finding out what a business model is. The term business model refers to a company's plan for making a profit. It identifies the products or services the business plans to sell, its identified target market, and any anticipated expenses. Business models are important for both new and established businesses. They help new developing companies attract investment, recruit talent, and motivate management and staff. Established businesses should regularly update their business plans or they'll fail to anticipate trends and challenges ahead. Business plans help investors evaluate companies that interest them. All right? Business models. A business model is a high-level plan for profitability operating a business in a specific marketplace. A primary component of the business model is the value proposition. This is a description of the goods and services that a company offers and why are they desirable to customers or clients, ideally stated in a way that differentiates the product or service from its competitors. A new enterprise's business model should also cover projected startup costs and financing sources that target customer base for business marketing strategy, a review of competition, and projection of revenue and expenses. This is important for everybody that is the entrepreneur. Do you understand a business model? The plan may also define opportunities in which the business can partner with established companies. For example, the business model for an advertising business may identify benefits from an arrangement for referrals to and from a printing company. Successful businesses have business models that allow them to fulfill client needs at a competitive price and a sustainable cost over time. Many businesses revise their business model from time to time to reflect business environments and market demands. Now, why did I start there? Well, I'll tell you. The race finesse is a business model. The reason why we don't know these balling blacks that we have covered the last few videos is because the business model of the race finesse goes against what I'm talking about. Let's deal with the business model of the race finesse. Okay. The 4 V's of business: value network, value creation, value capture, value proposition. Okay. The reason why you don't know anything but a slave story is because of the race finesse business model. It is a business model. It's a $1.2 trillion economy. It is very profitable. You can always sell this and repackage it. Okay. It is a real life business model that people keep washing, rinse, and repeating. All right. So at the top, what are your customers and what do they value? Target customer solutions. Okay. So in the race finesse business model, your target customers are blacks of all ages, from young to old, right? Preferably of the lower income and dysfunctional families, because they are people that when you sell the race finesse to them, they'll buy into it because they'll look at their circumstance and their outcome and they'll say, yeah, I have to be here because of race, not my decision making, nothing my parents did. It has to be because of race, right? Now, good businesses offer a solution. Now, the solution that the race finesse offers is just more victimization refined. There is no solution, right? Good businesses solve problems, but the race finesse in this business model, the solution, there is no solution, right? What they'll do is repackage the victimization more refined with different talking heads and people that's more easy on the eyes and different commercials and different jingles. Okay. So your target customers are blacks of all ages. You can sell this to the babies. You can sell this to the old people, people of lower income and those with dysfunctional families. They'll bite on it quicker than people that have the traditional nuclear family. okay? Because people that have the traditional nuclear family, you know, you do a lot of table talking. You spend a lot of time with each other and you begin to mirror the ideals of your family members. But in this business model, it works when you're selling to people, right? It works when you're selling to people that are of lower income and dysfunctional families, okay? So there is no solution. A good business offers solution, right? But in the race finesse, which is a $1.2 trillion economy, there is no solution. All right, now moving on. How is the value chain configured? Production and distribution. All right. The production in the race finesse is ministry, music, and media. Ministry, music, and media. The distribution comes from pastors, artists, influencers, and word of mouth. The pastors specifically push the oppression and racial finesse narrative, right? Now, someone like Umar Johnson will be considered a pastor slash a influencer, okay? They're a pastor slash influencer. He has the tone of the pastor, right? And he's an influencer because he can get you to put your money to something, even though you've never seen the business plan. Now, what I'm showing you is a business model, right? So if someone wants you to seed into their business, they can answer questions about your business based on the business model. And anyone that is trying to raise capital, they have to endure sharp questions from the investors, except when you have this business model, because all you have to do is go into an emotional place with the people that you're trying to sell to. You don't actually have to have a business plan. All you have to do is talk about race and oppression, right? Also, the artists. The artists, many of them aren't even educated, okay? But they will talk and they will push this narrative in their art, in their music, in their drawings, in their interviews about the race finesse, right? And I told you about an influencer. I'll just give you an example of someone like Umar. Umar is an influencer, okay? And also word of mouth. When you go to the barbershop, people are all talking about what the police did or reparations, okay? There's a science to this. What is the economic logic of making a return? Revenue and cost architecture. Well, sell pain and trauma. The demand is always there. It's a $1.2 trillion economy. The race finesse is a $1.2 trillion economy. So when you're selling this shit, trust me, the demand is always there so you can supply it. Now, remember, the target audience is young blacks, old blacks. You can always sell victimization because in the minds of the people anyway, they think every white person is rich. So you can always sell feeling bad for yourself. You can always sell oppression. You can find somewhere where the police is going upside somebody's head and you can sell that, right? Now, the good thing about this business model is you don't need no upfront capital. All you need to do is put a phone in your face and you can point to racism and point to the oppression. Now, usual businesses, you need some startup capital to start, but the race finesse, you don't need no startup capital. Even in the game, when you hustling, you got to have some money for the plug or unless you're going to get fronted. But in this economy, you don't need no money, right? So you don't need no finances. All you need to do is say, look what they're doing to us. They don't love us. And all you have to do is have a little bit of charisma and you'll be successful. All right. Now, what is the role in the value network? Partners. You partner up with the NAACP, you partner up with churches, you partner up with things like Black Lives Matter. That's how it works. Those are your partners. Black Lives Matter, churches, NAACP. They will help you in pushing the race finesse narrative, but they're not going to talk about certain things to you. And that is different types of governments and class. Do y'all all understand what a business model is and how it works? I just broke down the race finesse and how that is a business model, and it is extremely profitable, right? And you don't need no startup capital, right? But there are certain things that won't get talked about. There are certain things that won't get discussed. The main one is the different types of government and class. Class is very, very, very important. Hence our conversation today. Blacks been ballin, class, status, and pedigree. Okay. So class is always going to be under the type of government you have. So let's look at the 10 most common types of governments in the world. And class will always be under that. Now, what we call race will be something baked into class, but your class can supersede anything quote unquote racial. So let's look at the 10 different types of governments. I just can hear myself like, yo, really be cooking. Yeah. You ever see in the studio someone spitting and they like, woo, they feeling their own stuff? I can hear myself like, yo, I'll be going in. All right. These are 10 forms of government, and class will exist underneath the type of government that you're under. All right. So you have democracy. Democracy is a form of government that allows people to choose leadership. The primary goal is to govern through fair representation and prevent abuse of power. The result is a system that requires discourse, debate, and compromise to satisfy the broadest possible number of public interests, leading to majority rule. Democracies advocate for fair and free elections, civic participation, human rights protections, and law and order. That's the first type. Second type, communism. Communism is a centralized form of government led by a single party that is often authoritarian in its rule. Inspired by German philosopher Karl Marx, communist states replace private property and profit-based economy with public ownership and communal control of economic production, such as labor, capital, goods, and natural resources. Citizens are part of a classless society that distributes goods and services as needed. The Negro in America is a communist at heart, for real. This is the type of government the Negro would like to live in. Unfortunately, when you study this type of government, it always ends bad for the people. But at the heart of the Negro, he and she in America really wants to live in a communist society, right? You don't need to buy all that. Why you got so many houses? Why you got so many cars? Man, I earned it. What you mean? I came with some that was fire for the market, and people feeling it. So that's why, right? Also, socialism. The Negro is socialist too, right? So this is another type of government. Socialism is a system that encourages cooperation rather than competition among citizens. Citizens communally own the means of production and distribution of goods and services, while a centralized government manages it. Each person benefits and contributes to the system according to their needs and ability. Oligarchy. Oligarchies are governments in which a collection of individuals rules over a nation. A specific set of qualities such as wealth, hereditary, and race are used to give a small group of people power. Oligarchies often have authoritative rulers and an absence of the democratic practices or individual rights. Okay. Aristocracy. Aristocracy refers to the government form in which a small elite ruling class, the aristocrats, or its aristocracy. Aristocracy. Man, I could fuck up a word. Aristocracy. Aristocracy refers to a government form in which a small elite ruling class of aristocratic have power over those in lower socioeconomic strata. Members of the aristocracy are usually chosen based on their education, upbringing, and genetic or family history. Aristocracies often connect wealth and ethnicity with both the ability and right to rule. We actually have this in America, for real, right? It's real quiet, though. It seems like a democracy in America. It's more like this right here. Monarchy. Monarchy is a power system that appoints a person as head of state for life or until Adjudication. Authority traditionally passes down through a succession line related to one's bloodline and birth order within the ruling royal family, often limited by gender. There are two types of monarchies, constitutional and absolute. Constitutional monarchies limit the monarch's power as outlined in a constitution, while absolute monarchies give a monarch unlimited power. Okay. Now we're going through the type of governments that exist so we can understand the class that exists under the governments. Theocracy. Theocracy refers to a form of government in which a specific religious ideology determines the leadership, laws, and customs. In many instances, there is little to no distinction between scriptural law and legal codes. Likewise, religious clergy will typically occupy leadership roles, sometimes including the highest office in the nation. Colonialism. Colonialism is a form of government in which a nation extends its sovereignty over other territories. In other words, it involves the expansion of a nation's rule beyond its borders. Colonialism often leads to ruling over indigenous populations and exploiting resources. The colonizer typically instills its economy, culture, religious order, and government from strength form to strengthen its authority. Totalitarianism. Totalitarianism is Totalitarian is an authoritarian form of government in which the ruling party recognizes no limitations whatsoever on its power, including in its citizens' lives or rights. A single figure often holds power and maintains authority through widespread surveillance, control over mass media, intimidating, demonstrating, or of paramilitary or police power, and suppression of protest, activism, or political opposition. And military dictatorship. A military dictatorship is a nation ruled by a single authority with absolute power and no democratic process. The head of state typically comes to power in a time of upheavals, such as high unemployment rates or civil unrest. They usually lead to the nation's armed forces using it to establish their brand of law and order and suppress the people's rights. Dictators dismiss due process, civil liberties, and political freedoms. Dissent or political opposition can be dangerous or even deadly for the country's citizens. All right. Why did I read all that? So we can establish what is class, but we have to understand what is the types of governments in the world. Now, Negroes in America don't believe we live under class, and we do. Okay? Let me tell you Negro class. Let me walk it down to you, because for you to understand blacks been balling, you have to understand class in America. And they have you in this racial world, but it's class. So pay attention to my screen as I walk you down the social strata of black in America, the truth of black in America. Pookies. Pookies represent the lowest level on the black class system because these are considered the undesirables. These are people that are on social programs, okay? These are people that are on drugs, right? These are people who the government considers the undesirables because if anything happens to them, nobody is going to miss them. Okay? This is a different level of poverty. Everything has a floor and a ceiling. Okay? Based on poverty, the Pookies, right, represent the lowest levels of poverty in America. Okay? People walk by them every day in their city and no one cares. Okay? They are considered the undesirables. They are the floor of poverty. Pookie, this character right here, there's a upward mobility that he would like to get to. Let me show you. And even though the upward mobility is poor, it's still a step above from his current lifestyle. Pookie would like to get here. They were very poor, but they aren't this. He would like to get here. Because even though they are poor, there's something that they do have as a commodity in their home. It was a house of love. So they were resource poor, but the house had love in it. And it was so much love in the house that the children were in a position for upward mobility to live better than the parents. So them falling off from this state would be to this. His upward mobility would be to this. Are you starting to understand how class works? This is the floor of poverty. This is the ceiling of poverty. Okay? Now, Pookies, the lowest levels, the undesirables, would like to get to James Evans and Florida Evans' way of life, a house, a family, things like that. James Evans would like to get to here. This is the middle class. Come on, man. I do this shit. Stop playing like you be on other people's channels and they be doing this. They don't. You know how when a person is rapping and you making that face, you know what I'm saying? You know when somebody rapping and you like, woo, woo. That's what I be doing. I be cooking. And you really be over there, you be trying to hold your face like, damn, this nigga be spitting. You don't want to give me my propers. You want to make me be regular, right? You don't want to be like, damn it, Ken. I know. I already know. I know who I am. So I know what this is. All right. Right? I'm a slow grinder for you so you understand. Pookie is the floor of poverty. This is class in America. This is black class. Like y'all like to pretend it doesn't exist, but it does. This is the lower levels of poverty in black America, the undesirables. No one cares about them, right? They're at the bottom of the social strata. Pookies. Pookie's upward mobility would be becoming James Evans. So even though James Evans is poor, even though they don't have much resources, even though they have hand-me-downs, right? They are doing better than Pookie. Okay? They still have a home. It's in Cabrini Projects, but this is the thing. Because Florida and James are not on substance abuse and they do have a house full of love, what they're missing is education for upward mobility. But as you notice, Michael has a different consciousness than Florida and James. So does the daughter. And even though JJ has this clownish way to him, he's still an artist, right? And all three of them have the ability for upward mobility. And their upward mobility would be to go here. This is the floor of middle class. Carl was a cop. Harriet was a housewife, I believe, right? And he was able to support his family on his cop salary. But he is the floor of the middle class. He is an upgrade from this, right? So this family right here, their falling off would be to go to right here. This is class. So from here to here, their upward mobility would be this. This is the floor of middle class. This is upward middle class. These Huxtables understand, do not experience the world the way he does. They don't experience the world the way James Evans does, and they don't experience the world the way they do. Now, just because Cliff is upper middle class, it doesn't mean someone's not going to call him a nigger. That's very possible. However, after he gets called that, he doesn't go back to where he goes to. That nigger word hits different when you're here. Trust me, right? And if these children need a bone marrow transplant, or if these children need services, it's going to come here first before it will come here. Not saying that the Huxtables are not going to experience so-called racism. Y'all think just because people are still racist to you, your class hasn't changed. But it has. Right? A poor white man can still call Cliff a name, but he's more balling than the poor whites. Understand something. Y'all are tripping. He has more value than a poor white man. Y'all think that a poor white man is equal to Cliff Huxtable, and he's not. He is not. He is not. We can test this out, right? A person from Arkansas, Alabama, or Mississippi, a white male that lives in a trailer park, how they look and the way they pronounce their words. If they were to go to San Francisco or New York for fine dining, and Cliff Huxtable walks in with his wife and his family, those diners would look at Cliff Huxtable and be partial to him before they're partial to the hillbilly white. Don't get it twisted. Class is real serious in the white world because their form of class was a thing called feudalism, and it exists to this day. How do we know? Where do we see class on display? When you look at the so-called the insurrection January 6th last year, that was poor whites, Appalachian whites. That was whites who have lost their position in the world because of automation. Those wasn't Silicon Valley whites. Silicon Valley whites and Mississippi whites are not the same. That's class. Okay. If this family were to fall off, their class level is so upper that they would go here. Right? Now, there is a step above this upper class right here. The step above the upper class is this: assets. So even though he's an entertainer, he has money to put to real estate. Right? He gets money from the radio, but he has money to put in real estate, right? He's in a position to set up things where money is working for him. Now, they're upper middle class. They still have jobs, though. Claire's a lawyer, Cliff is a doctor, right? So he's actually in a better social position than him. All right. Pookie is the lowest of poverty. Okay. So poverty has a ceiling. He's the lowest. Okay. And this is who people in this position, right? This is who they're always talking about, right? We as a people, blah, 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 right? Matter of fact, both of these positions right here, this position and this position, right? They don't talk about their class. What they make it seem like is they're living the life of him, and they're not. Now, let me tell you the problem. The problem is people from here and here want to behave like him. This is how you have people from this environment all of a sudden go to thugging and hustling, right? So people from this environment, they're resource poor, but they got love in the house. And this is a housewife and a working man. They always get caught up with him. People from this environment tend to have survivor's guilt, right? People from this environment right here, these are your brownstone blacks. These brownstone blacks talk about race a lot, right? But they don't tell the people from here and here how to make money. So, but what they do talk about to them is race. That's the conversation that they have. So this is upper middle class. No, this is yeah. This is this is upper class. This is upper middle class. This is middle class. This is ceiling poverty, and this is floor poverty. Okay. This upper class and upper middle class, they are the ones that talk about race. The reason why they talk about race is because so many people live here, right? And this group right here and this group right here does not need this group right here to go to war with them. So they pretend that they are experiencing this hard life, and they still talk, we as America, being black in America, but right? Angela Rye comes from this, right? Van Jones, they're part of this. Well, Van Jones probably has came here, but there's a thing outside of this though. So you have floor poverty, ceiling poverty, floor middle class, upper middle class, upper class, elite. Notice the woman change. Billionaire, elite. This all exists in America with this ideal of race. I'm not saying that this guy doesn't experience discrimination, because he can. But he is in such a position of power that he can change the life of the person that's discriminating on him. For example, if a police officer, a white police officer that makes $40,000 a year, were to discriminate against him, his pockets is so deep that he can not only change the dynamic of the police force, he will change that person discriminated on him. But trust me, he is not feeling what he is feeling. But notice though, look at the woman change. Boop, 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 boop. Class. How much you think what's around her neck costs? What you think her neck costs? So everybody on this chat is somewhere in here. You either a Pookie, you on the bottom floor, right? You're here. The most blacks in America is here and here, right? Most blacks in America is between this, and their family members are here. So it's between this, and this. When you begin to get to this is where they start calling you a sellout. This is where they start calling you a Uncle Tom, or you forgot where you came from, right? Very few blacks is here. Not because the opportunity to make it there is not there, as we've seen in our Blacks Been Ballin series, and we'll see today, they can make it here. The problem is when you get here, you start feeling pressure from those here and here. You feel a lot of pressure, because the problem with the black family here, they have to help out everybody that's here, here, and here. So where you would put money to invest to become this, you can't, because you have to help everybody here, because we are under the assumption that one family is supposed to fix the entire race. So when you get here, a lot of these people are upper middle class, but they're cash poor. So they don't have a lot of liquid. Their liquid goes into helping the other family that's stuck here and here. So they have the opportunity to go to investment, but their money and their resources go to picking up everybody else. Right? Now, this individual can get here. right? The problem is even though this individual starts to have assets, the individual does not become the big time investor though to bring him here. So here is your shade room blacks, your reality show blacks. So they'll have real estate and stuff like that, right? They'll have those things. You'll see DJ Envy, Killer Mike, or whatever. This is them. This is the black upper class right here, okay? The problem is with this upper class, why it doesn't become or why it doesn't become upper class is because it's flexing is baked into the culture, right? So the women of this class right here will show that they got a new car from their man, right? Now, Black America does not follow the elite billionaire blacks. It follows this class right here. He is the buffer, and people like him is the buffer to everybody else. They set the tone for all the blacks below them. They are the tastemakers. They say what's cool and what's not cool because this is your entertainment class, right? Now, the upper middle class career people, they don't run Black America, right? They're the heads of the family, but they necessarily don't run Black America. This class right here runs Black America, right? Not this class right here. This is a very, very smart man, but he doesn't run Black America. Now, it's important that we're talking about class. Black consciousness is stuck in between this strata right here. This, and this. Okay. So, woke is something different than traditional consciousness. Like if anybody used to watch Sonetta's Page or 125th Street, that's all this, Pookie's, James Evans, here. Woke is something different. Woke is Angela Rye, and it's this class right here and this class, right? All of these people have seen Hidden Colors. They are woke, right? They don't know about Ashwa Kwesi though, right? They didn't read ISIS papers, right? They are about police reform, okay? They don't know about Khalid Muhammad. People from this class, and this class do, right? So even what we call Black thinking is different, right? In this class, in the Pookie class, in the alcoholic fiend class, you'll know about the FOI, right? So the FOI is good for Pookies, right? The Nation of Islam had the ability to take this individual right here and turn him into this, right? Listen what I'm telling you, because each group, there's a class consciousness. If you're in this class, the Nation of Islam was for people here. This is what the rhetoric of the black man is God was for, because that information and Elijah Muhammad's teaching and Malcolm X had the ability to take the Pookie and turn him into James Evans. Now, the James Evans still lived in the projects, right? But it had the ability to take him from to here. Now, when you get here where you start, reading the destruction of Black civilization. You know what I'm saying? You get a little more fancy in your consciousness. You start talking about Kemet, right? Here is where Brother Polite can affect you at. He'll hit you with the 9 streams of income. And Umar is talking to people from this class right here. Now, Umar will have a harder time talking to this class right here is because the father works, the mom is a housewife, the family is in a middle class area. So they're not going to be listening to someone like Umar, okay? They'll be listening to different people. So the FOI is for him. Brother Polite get you here, right? Umar get you right here. When you get here, it becomes different. You go to school for African American studies. When you get here, you watch Hidden Colors. Here and here, watch Hidden Colors. They don't traditionally deal with the militant side that Pookie would deal with. It's a little different, right? He ain't dealing with none of that shit. He dealing with the Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith. He's dealing with Warren Buffett. He's dealing with the intelligent investor. He ain't listening to no Umar. He ain't listening to no Farrakhan. He ain't doing none of that. He's listening to Elon Musk. So you see the difference in thinking in class, right? He's more Republican in his views of commerce, right? So let's go through the strata. This is the baked-in class system in Black America, whether we wanted to admit it or not. We think it's about race, but when you start digging through the layers, it's about class. This class is the Pookie class. This is the junkie, the fiend. These are the undesirables, okay? His upward mobility would be to go to here, would be James Evans. Projects, right? But still, it's still love in the house, right? James Evans would like to go here. Working man, right? He has a better job than James Evans. Harriet Winslow is living a different. First of all, look at the difference. Look at the difference. You see class? Look at the difference, right? Look, the house is different. Now, you could talk about oppression all you want, but you got to talk about class first because it hits different in different places. Nobody around the world loves the poor. Rich man oppression and poor man oppression is not the same. You know what rich man oppression is? What Brian Flores is going through. Oh, man, they're discriminating me on my job. After he just made millions of dollars, right? Discrimination here means no heat in your house. Hit's different. Look at the difference. Harriet and Florida are different. Look at Florida, man. Look at Harriet. Look at Claire. You don't understand class? Just look at the women. Claire, Harriet, Florida. Look at the men. James, Carl, Bill. Look at Pookie. You don't understand class in America, right? You're going to pretend that this shit doesn't exist. You're going to pretend when you get a promotion at your job, your life isn't different. Yeah, okay. Right? So we understand Black class in America because I'm going to tell you the origin of it. I'm going to tell you the truth about so-called 1619 and when we came in this country. This country is built on class first. Before there was ever race in this country, and I got the receipts, there was class. So Pookie, bottom, undesirables. Cabrini Green, Carl Winslow, right? The Huxtables, this is the entertainment class, right? This is the Black upper class, right? And then this right here, boss of the bosses, $4 billion net worth, $7 billion net worth. But notice though, the billionaire Black got a different wifey than everybody else. Look at James. Look at him. Look at him. Look at him. Look at my man. This is class in America. You're welcome. Right? Now, y'all can pretend like that doesn't exist. So y'all like to play the racial game. I play the money game, right? And rich Blacks love to talk to you about race for a reason, to keep your ass right there. But let's read something real quick though, because people swear to God that the founding of this country is race. Are you sure? You sure it's not indentured servitude that you could work your way off? And what happens when these so-called Blacks get their freedom? Oh, they get white slaves and Black slaves. Interesting. Okay. Let's look at class in America. where it started. Oh, no, 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 no. Matter of fact, before we do that, let's listen to something so they can break this down about class two, right? So we looked at black class, but let's look at class, right? So you fully understand how this shit works. Press 1 in the chat if you can see. All right.
In a previous lesson, we discussed social stratification, a system by which society ranks categories of people in a hierarchy. In an open system of social stratification, which is what we have, status is achieved through merit or effort, and social mobility between classes is possible through education and certain opportunities. The American class system is typically broadly divided into three main layers: upper class, middle class, and lower class. They are mostly based on socioeconomic conditions. Although definitions and membership criteria aren't concrete, these three classes offer a general understanding of what social stratification looks like in the U.S. In this lesson, we'll discuss these three types of classes, including the layers that exist in each. First, we'll start at the top of the hierarchy. Individuals who are considered to be members of the upper class are the owners of the means of production and most of the country's private wealth. Many are important government officials, large business owners, or top executives that have a great deal of income and/or wealth. It is important to know the difference between income and wealth, as they are two distinct concepts. They are also a big part of determining social status. Income is salary and/or other money that is regularly received, where wealth is the total value of all assets minus outstanding debts. In other words, income is what you make and wealth is what you have. Someone can bring in a high income without being wealthy, and can also be wealthy without bringing in any income. For example, some people earn a large salary, but spend it all on a large house, fancy cars, travel, etc. These individuals basically live from paycheck to paycheck, and if they were to stop working, they would quickly become destitute. On the other hand, some people earn a modest salary, but are very frugal in how they spend it. They live below their means and carefully invest anything that's left over. For some of these individuals, they could stop working and still have enough money to live on for years. Another example of how someone can be wealthy without an income can be seen in the most elite of the upper class. The upper class actually has two layers: the upper class and the lower upper class. The upper class makes up less than 1% of the U.S. population, and membership is almost always the result of birth. These individuals are the blue bloods, or old money, who inherit massive wealth from their family. The Queen of England is an example, as are the Kennedys and the Rockefellers. These individuals have inherited enough that they don't need to work. On the other hand,
let me see. I think I used my credits. I done hacked this site or whatever. They're not gonna let me go. But I think you get the gist of that. That was a site that I was using. All right, so it's black blue bloods too, though, right? So let's read something real quick so we can see exactly, is race the foundation of America? Is it? Let's find out. They cut my access off. Class, you see what I mean? Is race the foundation of America? Oh no, let's get rid of that. 1 second. Uh-oh. We about to cook, right? We about to cook. Inventing black and white. Inventing black and white. What does that mean? How are you going to invent black or white? Really? Interesting. In Virginia, 1600s, Anthony Johnson secured freedom from indentured servitude, acquired land, and became a respected member of his community. Elizabeth Key successfully appealed to the colony's legal system to set her free after she wrongly enslaved. By 1700s, the laws and customs of Virginia had begun to distinguish black from white, making it possible for most Virginians of African descent to do what Johnson and Key had done. Why did Virginia lawmakers make these changes? Listen and listen clear. Why did Virginia and lawmakers make these changes? Many historians point to the event known as the Bacon Rebellion of 1676 as a turning point. Nathaniel Bacon was a white property owner and relative of Virginia's governor, William Berkeley. But Bacon and Berkeley did not like each other, and they disagreed over issues pertaining to how the colony should be governed, including the colony's policy toward Native Americans. Bacon wanted the colony to retaliate for raids by Native Americans on frontier settlements and to remove all Native Americans from the colony so landowners like self could expand their property. Berkeley feared that doing so would unite all the nearby tribes in a costly and destructive war against the colony. In defiance of the governor, Bacon organized his own militia, instead consisting of white and black indentured servants and enslaved black people who joined in exchange for freedom and attacked nearby tribes. A power struggle ensued with Bacon and his militia on one side and Berkeley, the Virginia House of Burgess, and the rest of the colony's elite on the other. Months of the conflict followed, including armed skirmishes between militias. In 1676, Bacon's militia captured Jamestown and burned it to the ground. Although Bacon died of fever a few months later and the rebellion fell apart, Virginia's wealthy planters were shaken by the fact that a rebel militia that united white and black servants and slaves had destroyed the colonial capital. Legal scholar Michelle Alexander writes, the events in Jamestown were alarming to the planter elite, who were deeply fearful of the multiracial alliance of indentured servants and slaves. Word of Bacon's rebellion spread far and wide, and several more uprisings of similar type followed. In an effort to protect their superior status and economic position, the planters shifted their strategy from maintaining dominance. They abandoned their heavy reliance on indentured servants in favor of the importation of more black slaves. After Bacon Rebellion, Virginia lawmakers began to make a legal distinction between white and black inhabitants by permanently enslaving Virginians of African descent and giving poor white indentured servants and farmers some new rights and status. They hoped to separate two groups and make it less likely that they would unite again in rebellion. Hold on. So if they were separate, then had to be separated, then what were they then? White and black indentured servants participated in Bacon's rebellion. So the elite at that time had to create racial differences because there was none. If your status was indentured servant, free, planter. Let's find out. Soon after Bacon's rebellion, they increasingly distinguished between people of African descent and people of European descent. They enacted laws which say that people of African descent are hereditary slaves, and they increasingly gave some power to independent white farmers and landholders. Now, what is interesting about this is that we normally say that slavery and freedom are opposite things. that they are diametrically opposed. But what we see here in Virginia in the late 17th century around Bacon's Rebellion is that freedom and slavery are created at the same time. According to Oxford Dictionary, the first appearance in print of the adjective white in reference to a white man, a person of a race distinguished by a light complexion, was in 1671. Colonial charters and other official documents written in the 1600s and early 1700s rarely refer to European colonists as whites. There was no such thing as a white man specifically before 1671 as a status. This tells you right here that race is a creation and not something new, or not something ancient or old. Now later, people like Carl Linnaeus and Blumenbach, they came with this pseudoscience of race, but that came later. Indentured servants here in America first were on equal status. And if you got your freedom, you could become a property owner. This country was not set on race. It was set on class. Race came later because white indentured servants and black indentured servants worked together. Let's read some more. Let's see if I'm capping. As the status of people of African descent in the British colonies was challenged and attacked, and white indentured servants were given new rights and status, the word white continued to be more widely used in public documents and private papers to describe European colonialists. People of European descent were considered white, and those of African descent were labeled black. Historian Robert D. Geely explains, many of European descended poor whites began to identify themselves, if not directly, with rich whites, certainly with being white. And here you get the emergence of this ideal of a white race as a way to distinguish themselves from dark-skinned people who they associated with perpetual slavery. But that's not how it was founded, though. The division in American society between black and white that became in the late 1600s had devastating consequences for African Americans as slavery began, an institution that flourished for centuries. Lawyer and civil rights activist Brian Stevens explains, slavery deprived the enslaved people of any legal rights or autonomy and granted the slave owner complete power over the black man, woman, and children legally recognized as property. American slavery was often brutal, barbaric, and violent. In addition to the hardships of forced labor, enslaved people were maimed or killed by slave owners as punishment for working too slowly, visiting a spouse, living on another plantation, or even learning to read. Enslaved people were also sexually exploited. Leaders and scientists from the United States around the world would increasingly rely on the supposed differences between the black and white races to justify an inhumane treatment of slaves. Let's go here. No. I'm about to bounce over here. So this is gonna make you go off the rocker. Okay, so we just now seen that white man becomes a thing in 1671. Prior to that, it was about indentured servitude. And what I'm about to read to you is about to completely blow your wig back. As I'm thinking to myself, like, I really do this shit. It's cool. Really do this. Uh-oh. African American slave owners. Uh-oh. Oh, buddy. Why is this important? Because no blacks own slaves, right? Or white people, right? They would never let that happen, right? This country was founded on race, right? Not class, but race first. That's what y'all say. America, by its nature, started with race and not class. So it was so the conquistadors didn't come to America for gold. They weren't looking for El Dorado. They didn't attack Central America and bring down the Aztec Empire. They did it for race or they did it for gold. Oh, buddy. African American slave owners. My interest in the Negro stems from my early childhood. During the Depression, in order to help make ends meet, my mother had a boarding house in our large Victoria home in East Falls Church, Virginia. One of my favorite people was Anna Mae, or our live-in maid and my friend. I spent many evenings in her quarters to clean her teeth, to use one of her hairpins. My admiration and love for her extended to my doing the same thing with the other of her hairpins. When Anna left us to get married, I wanted to leave with her. When she had a baby, I was terribly jealous. The family lived next door to us, no doubt. Old Fish was Mr. Thompson's best friend. They whiled away the summer days sitting on the back porch steps or shuffled off together to go fishing. Mr. Thompson was special to me, so Fish was special too. Fish's parents had been slaves. Mr. Thompson's wife had died, leaving him 6 children to raise. In reality, it was their Negro maid Jane who had the most influence on the youngsters. She became the mother figure and ran a tight ship. All of us respected Jane and knew to give her little trouble. Before we moved to Virginia, my parents and I made our home in Washington, D.C. My playmates were my nephew and Cotton, curly-haired black boy. The 3 of us paled around together. Race was not an issue. Later in life, my husband and I lived in Louisiana in the early mid-50s. Many times I witnessed a high regard between the races. I was a collections officer for the Internal Revenue Service. I was surprised to see the patience shown by my fellow agents to late. Tax-paying Negroes where little patience was shown to their white counterparts. For the first part, my early experience with people of color was positive and often heartwarming. Unfortunately, for the last 40 years, there has been a movement to ruin racial relations in this country. Karl Marx believed that in order to reshape people, their heritage must be first eradicated. This is done through brainwashing. The undesirables must be made to feel ridden with guilt, to be classified as inferior, and even made to feel evil. This modus operandi was used against American Indians and is still to some extent. Negroes are considered substandard because they come from slaves. Be given every break or they will surely fail. All Southerners are racist. They all had slaves and they went to war to protect slavery. Consequently, their songs, flags, special days, and other symbols of their heritage are considered evil and must be abolished. With the American Indian, their children were taken from them and sent to government schools. They were not allowed to speak their native language, dance their native dances, or sing their native songs. Their heritage, like South heritage, must be invalidated. If the desired result was to shape America into mindless robots, I will say, to a great extent, that has happened. On the other hand, hate and distrust have masterfully accomplished. Now, contemporary unionists are stepping forward who want to see America at its best, a harmonious and free union of free people who truly care for each other. Karl Marx's concept will never accomplish that. Only with truth gained from laborious research and the sharing of knowledge can we have a genuine union of people of goodwill. Okay, let's get into it. Napoleon Bonaparte once said, "What is history but a fable agreed upon?" Certainly, one growing fable is the misconception that most Southern whites had slaves. On the contrary, 75% of Southern families did not own slaves. Out of all total population of 8 million, only 385,000 were slaveholders. Of the 50% owned 1 to 5 slaves. 38% owned 5 to 20 slaves. 12% had 20 or more. Those who had 20 or more slaves were classified as planters. According to South Carolina 1860 census, 790 slaves were owned by black slave masters. What? William Ellison Sr. of Center District owned 63. According to the book The Free People of Color in Louisiana and St. Dominique, a comparative portrait of 2-3 caste society, William Ellison was freed at the age of 29 and eventually became a major planter, patented his own cotton gin, purchased a plantation house from the government of South Carolina, and was accepted into the restricted white Episcopal Church of Sumter. William Ellison eventually owned 100 slaves. When he died, he was buried in the white cemetery of the Episcopal Church. Both daughters married white men of substantial means. His children immigrated sometime after 1850s until they had been accepted by white society. According to the 1830 U.S. federal census, 10,000 slaves were owned by African Americans in the state of South Carolina, Louisiana, Virginia, and Maryland. 8 African Americans in New York City owned 17 slaves at that time. What? Slavery was nothing new to African natives. Most of them have come to this country, had been slaves by opposing African tribes, and sold for profit to white New England and Dutch sea captains. The native Africans being a slave owner was an admirable position to be in. Go ahead and say cap. To white southern states, where the largest number of free people of color owning slaves were in South Carolina and Louisiana, they dealt with their slaves just as their white counterparts. The punishment of runaway slaves and dealing with the long-term care of slaves were just as demanding for African American slaveholders as any other slaveholder. It was not by law, but it was rigidly followed that slaves would be taken care of from birth to death, namely housing, food, clothing, and medical. Northern factory workers should have fared as well, or the poor of any race, era, or geographical location. Life for them has always been cruel. As an aside, it wasn't until the 20th century, with the formation of labor unions, that working conditions for Northern factory workers began to improve. Up until then, the working, starving, poor immigrants had no rights. Are y'all sure this is about race? Are you sure? The legal question next would be, how did free people of color acquire slaves? Oftentimes, when a slave was given his freedom, his master gave him or her a slave or two. Really? No slave could be set free unless he could support himself. Freed slaves acquired their skills while on the plantation, such as farming, blacksmithing, carpentry, stone and brick mason, animal husbandry, sewing, baking house cleaning, laundering, and childcare. The Negro son or daughter of a white planter would often be given a slave as a gift with real property to their offspring when freed. What? When the U.S. federal census of 1790 was taken in Charleston City, South Carolina, it revealed that 36 out of 120 free black heads of households owned slaves. Hold on. Who y'all gonna get reparations from? I got a question. Who are y'all getting reparations from? Who are you going to sue? When the first U.S. federal census of 1790 was taken in Charleston City, South Carolina, it revealed that 36 out of 102 free black heads of household owned slaves. Surprisingly, during the antebellum period, the majority of black urban slaveholders were females. What? By the end of 1850 federal census, the number of black women who owned slaves were reported at 123, while only 68 black men owned slaves in that city. 10 years later, male masters surpassed the number of female mistresses. Many free black women inherited their slaves from their deceased free black husbands. As an example, when a Charleston colored butcher died, he left 6 slaves, Stella, Mary, Jacob, Lizzie, and Selena, to his wife, Mary Kochler. They were valued at $2,530. What? Many black women slave owners purchased their own slaves. Rebecca Johnson, a successful Charleston laundress, needed help. In 1880, she purchased a black woman. At Rebecca's death, she had 3 slaves, Rose, Molly, and Martha, who were valued at $1,900. What? On April 6, 1865, Esther Hill Hawkins did this in her diary. Quote, on a way home, visited Nosiet's garden. The proprietor is a black woman of great wealth, the widow of a black man, the owner of a great many slaves, and this most beautiful and productive farm. They had cultivated early vegetables for the city of Charleston markets and also supplied the most rare and beautiful flowers. There are acres of land now neglected, but covered with japonica, islanders, and great rose bushes. The lane leading from the street to this house, a quarter of a mile or more, is hedged and on either side with beautiful rare Cherokee rose bushes. It is one of the finest places in the city, in this vicinity. This was a black person. I keep telling y'all, blacks been balling. The first permanent English settlement in Virginia was established in 1607, 13 years before Pilgrims landed at Plymouth, Massachusetts. In 1619, Anthony Johnson was one of the original 20 Africans brought to Jamestown and sold to colonists. By 1623, he had earned his freedom. By 1651, Johnson was prosperous enough to import 5 slaves. Wait a minute. What? He received a grant of 250 acres as head rights. Johnson was the first black to establish a Negro community, the first black landowner, and the first black slave owner. What? Hold on, let me check that date again. In 1619, Anthony Johnson was one of the original 20 Africans brought to Jamestown and sold to the colonists. Let me make sure I'm clear. Let me get these dates, because y'all say America's original sin is race. Is it? Okay. 1623, he earned his freedom. By 1651, this black man named Anthony Johnson was prosperous enough to import 5 slaves. He received a 250 acres as head rights. Wait a minute. Huh? Something ain't right. Wait a minute. This ain't part of the 1619 project. Wait a minute. How was he able to own these slaves? Class. He received a grant of 250 acres as head rights. Johnson was the first black to establish a Negro community, the first black landowner, and first black slave owner. Whoa. Nat Butler, a Negro, lived near Aberdeen, Maryland. He helped slaves by stealing from their owners and providing them with a hiding place at his farm while they trustingly waited to be taken north. But Nat had another ideal. While the trusting slaves waited, Nat went to the former slave owners and tried to sell them back the slaves. God. Okay. While the trusting slaves waited, Nat went to the former owners and tried to sell back the slaves he had stolen. If the price was too low to suit, Nat would find another buyer. So Nat, a Negro, would steal slaves and try to sell them back to their owner. Woo! Blacks been balling. The Christian Examiner of March 1859 and the Plaquemine, Louisiana Sentinel newspaper of that same year told about a wealthy Negro purchased a 4,000-acre Louisiana plantation, including 200 slaves. What in the hell? 1859? 4,000 acres? Wait a minute, let me read this correctly, because y'all have been telling me for a long time that white. Man, let me get this straight. Hold on, let me make this big. So I write. because something ain't right. Blacks really truly balling, and this thing is about class. Let me get this straight. me. The Christian Examiner of 1850. Hold on, let me highlight this so I know, right? Because this man, Tariq Nasheed didn't talk about this on Hidden Colors. Wait a minute. Hold up. The Christian Examiner of 1859 and the Plaquemine, Louisiana Sentinel newspaper of the same year told about a wealthy Negro who purchased 4,000-acre Louisiana plantation, including 200 slaves. The purchaser, one of the wealthiest men in the South, paid $250,000 for the plantation. I believe the newspaper accounts were mistaken, and they were referring to Augustus Dublicet of Urbanville Parish, where his real property was valued at $200,000. His plantation totaled more than 1,200 acres. He had 94 slaves. Of that same parish was Antoine Ducar of Point Copey, who owned more than 1,000 acres and 112 slaves. Holy moly. Holy. Does Umar know this? I don't think Umar Johnson knows this. Whoa. Whoa. In addition, the free colored of Louisiana had French names and were mulattoes who inherited substantial wealth from their white fathers. Life was inordinately difficult for a spouse who could not satisfy her husband with a male heir and whose husband had to resort to a black mistress. Subsequently, the planter's wife held little standing either among the blacks or whites on the plantation. As late as 1863, 2 years after the alleged war for freedom from slavery had started, there were 3 Negroes who owned slaves in the District of Columbia. Genealogists may be interested to know they were Robert Gunnell, owner of 10 slaves, Gabriel Conkley, owner of 8 slaves, and James W. McDaniel, owner of 2 slaves. The Pendarus family was one of the largest slave-owning colored families to plant rice in the state of South Carolina. It started during the mid-1730s when the mulatto children of Joseph, a white planter, and his mistress, Pontherware, were given a 1,009-acre plantation in Charleston Neck. Joseph bequeathed to his 7 children not only land, but slaves, thus becoming one of the most prominent slave-holding families in South Carolina. Upon the death of James Pandarus, the oldest son of Joseph owned a vast estate. Joseph's estate consisted of 2 plantations, the Legs and Beach Hill addition to 3,000 additional acres. He owned 155 slaves. If you're just joining the chat, all these slaves are owned by niggas. Families endure a great trial when they lose their father purchased by one master, the mother by another, and each of the children by still another. And this for the money that they own the sea captain. Surprisingly, this was the sad story of many of the white poor immigrants who came to this country without funds. From 3 to 8 years were worked from 3 to 8 years were worked off with the prospect of freedom. Sadly, many would never know freedom since they were too poor for legal defense. Hold up. Families endure a great trial when they see the father purchased by one master, the mother by another, and each of the children by still another. And this for the money that they owed for the sea captain. Surprisingly, this was the sad story of many white poor immigrants who came to this country without funds. From 3 to 8 years were worked off with the prospect of freedom. Sadly, many would never know the freedom since they were too poor for legal defense, aka whites were being owned too. I found an instance where free Negroes became the purchasers and masters of transported whites. Hold on. Does Umar Johnson know this? Wait a minute. Does Umar Johnson know that Negroes in America was owning white people? Uh-huh. I keep telling you it's about class, not race. That came later. Race is something people practice, but the class supersedes the race. I found an instance where free Negroes became the purchasers and masters of transported white slaves. Someone screenshot me when I say this. All right, let me know when you're ready. All right, you ready? I found an instance where free Negroes became the purchasers and masters of transported white people. All right, give me again. I found an instance where free Negroes were the purchasers and masters of transported white people. All right, we're going to do it one more time for the people in the back, right? This victim narrative. Oh my God. Oh God. Oh Lord, it's me. Oh my God. I've been fighting all my life. Oh my God. Oh Jesus, help me. Oh my Lord. Huh. I found an instance where free Negroes became the purchasers and masters of transported white people. Are those your ancestors or no? Right? Negroes in America were owning white people too. Do you know why? Because it's about your class in America. There were two families from Germany who had not been able to pay for their passage from Amsterdam to Baltimore and were sold for their passage. Money and were sold to their and were sold for their passage money to a term of labor. The information appeared in a volume issued in 1818 Stargut. It contained letters written in 1817 addressed from Baltimore to the Baron von Gargen, a Frankfurt on the Main. The Germans of Baltimore were so outraged by this action that they immediately raised enough money to purchase the immigrants' freedom. Logically, it would seem that there were many white immigrants who did not have a purse raised for their freedom and remained in servitude to black masters. Does it matter? I'm talking about class. Y'all will move that goalpost. What does it call them? Logically, it would seem that there were many white immigrants who did not have a purse raised for their freedom, and they remained in servitude to their who? To their who? To their black masters in the 1800s. That definitely changes the story, doesn't it? To their black masters. Oh. So as we seen earlier from the document that I read, we seen that class came first. Then you see what happened with the Bacon Rebellion. It gives you a date when they give white a actual status, 1671. It did not start in 1619. Anthony Johnson in 1650 had land, 250 acres, and 4 white slaves and 1 black slave named John Kosar, who became a slave for life. Look, even this gentleman, he don't want to see himself as a master. He wasn't. No, but he can't see himself as a master. That's too much. He like, nah, man, nah. Because he can't possibly fathom that Negroes were owning whites. It don't matter. Their masters were black. Doesn't matter if they was indentured service. They still had a job to do. And John Kosar, who was an indentured service, wind up being a slave for life to Anthony Johnson. Doesn't matter. It does not matter that they were indentured servants. The matter is they were servants to black masters. Focus on the black master part. You like, nah, but you're one of them people that be like, yo, I got 30 million. Yeah, but you don't got 300 million. Then when I get 300 million, you'll be like, yeah, but you don't got 3 billion. Then when I get 3 billion, you'll be like, yeah, but you don't got 30 billion. Focus on the black masters. Is that even taught that blacks owned whites in America? Yes or no? Someone put in the chat, whether they was indentured servants or not. Is that taught that blacks owned whites in America? Yes or no? I never heard that on Hidden Colors. I never heard no Negro scholar even mention that. Do you know why? Is it because that would change the thinking of blacks in America about themselves? Hold on. Let me get big real quick. Keep it real. Chat. Were you taught that blacks own whites in America? Keep it real. No. Nope. No, it was never taught. Oh, okay. Nope. 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 No. Look at all these no's. Look at all these no's. Now, what if the people saying no would have known this at 13 and 12 years old? Look at this. No. Hell no. Hell to the nah. Imagine if the people that are saying no would have known this at 12, 13, 14 years old. Do you know how it would change their perspective? Do you know how it would prime them for entrepreneurship? And they would not never look at white people the way that they do. They would never use terms like white supremacy because they know Negroes had a history of owning them. There's a reason why that's not told. Changes everything. Come on, man. The chat ain't lying. It changes the game. Negroes it called them. Hold on. Let's bring it back. What does it call them? What does it call them? Let me bring this down real quick. What does it call them? Logically, it would seem that there were many white immigrants who did not have a purse raised for their freedom and remained in servitude to who? Wait a minute. They would remain in servitude to who? I need y'all to type it so you understand. Who are they remaining in servitude to? What's the word that is being used to describe them? Who are they in servitude to? They don't say black people. Who do they say? Let me make it big for you so you can see. They remained in servitude. Huh? Because when we talk about massa, we're only talking about one type of people. You could call black folks massa too. In servitude to who? To who? Uh-huh. To who? To the white indentured servitude. Those people were black masters. Yeah. That's how we giving it up. Yeah. So don't ever walk around here with low self-esteem. Don't ever be around here talking about they. That's just the way history goes. It goes up, it goes down. People own, people be slaves, right? But class. See, they got you playing the race game because you don't know, right? So they'll have you thinking that you always been on the bottom, but blacks been balling. When you talk about massa, who are you talking about? I'm gonna do you one better. This is a PDF that I have. I'm gonna put this in the chat for y'all so you can read it for yourself. Put it in the chat for y'all. Download it. Right? So you have it for yourself. So you can stop looking at other people like they got the sauce. Right? Part of the reason why many of you can't get things done, part of the reason why many of you have lack of confidence, part of the reason why you have this quote unquote trauma is because you are allowing people to plant memories in you that never even happened or not the entire story. Well, now massa refers to you. So when you talk about the slave master, you got to ask people, be specific. Blacks had black slaves and white slaves in thousands of acres of land here in America, not a foreign country. This thing is about class. Let's keep going. There was a lot of discrimination and still is within the Negro race. As recent as Mayor Anthony Williams of Washington, D.C., who was scorned because of his light skin. General Secretary of State Colin Powell has suffered the same ridicule from his darker brother. Years ago, the mulattoes from one group, especially along the coast of South Carolina, thought themselves superior to their dark-skinned brethren. There was and still is snobbishness between rural and urban Negroes and the educated and less educated. In pre and post Civil War days, poor white trash was looked upon as less than poor blacks by both Negroes and Caucasians. Hold on. Hold up. Hold on. Do y'all see that? Do y'all see that? Years ago, mulattoes from one group, especially along the coast of South Carolina, thought themselves superior to their dark-skinned brethren. There was and still is snobbishness between rural and urban Negroes and the educated and less educated. In pre and post Civil War days, po white trash was looked upon as less than poor blacks by both Negroes and Caucasians. Why I oughta? Why I oughta? You feel down about yourself? Y'all tripping. Y'all tripping. It's the history is told a certain way for a reason. Right now, remember how I broke down the class before between the Negroes? Look, let's bring back up Pookie. Years ago, mulattoes from one group, especially along the coast of South Carolina, thought themselves superior to their dark-skinned brethren. There was and still is snobbishness between the rural and urban Negroes and the uneducated and less educated. That's class. Remember Pookie. Pookie goes upward mobility to here. Their upward mobility is to here. Their upward mobility is to here. And their upward mobility is to here. And the pinnacle of upward mobility would be here. Why are we playing? Right? The educated, the less educated, the light, the dark. Those dynamics in class exist all around the world. Let's stop pretending, let's stop playing this black we game because it's not true. Pookie is not the same as these people. Let's stop playing. And these people are not the same as him. His status in America is above even Cliff Huxtable's status. But Cliff Huxtable's status is above Carl Winslow, is above James Evans, and James Evans' status in the world is above Pookie. Stop playing these games and get your shit together. Get on your grind. They are lying to you about capitalism in America. They are lying to you about melanated people's participation in the building of America. You didn't just build it from a slave perspective. You have built America from an ownership perspective. We may wring our hand. Wait, first of all, let me read this again. Let me read this again. Because y'all swear that even right now, that a poor white man, you really believe in your heart of hearts, that a poor white man that's homeless, he has the same status as Robert F. Smith? Is your self-esteem that low where you think that a poor white man has more status than this billionaire man? Is that the how low Negro self-esteem is? Blacks been balling. Let me read this again. Years ago, the mulattoes from one group, especially alongside the coast of South Carolina, thought themselves superior to their dark-skinned brethren. There was and still is snobbishness between the rural and urban Negroes and the educated and less educated. In pre- and post-Civil War days, Poe white trash was looked upon as less than poor blacks by both Negroes and Caucasians. Exhibit A. Poor white trash, the 400-year history, untold class of America. Exhibit A. By Nancy Eisenberg. In this book, you'll find what the founding fathers of America thought about poor whites. The term cracker does not come from someone cracking a whip. The term cracker comes from upper class whites describing white folks at the bottom. Redneck is a term that comes from people that were fighting for union right, workers' rights in Virginia, and they wore red handkerchiefs around their neck. White trash. I just read to you that poor whites were lower in Negroes' eyes and Caucasians' eyes than black. The trick is to make the poor white think he's better than the black. That's how the poor white doesn't go to war with upper class whites, because he says, well, at least I ain't black. That's a trick, and we just talked about that, stemming from Bacon's Rebellion. That is a trick that upper class whites do to lower class whites. Because if they don't create that buffer class in thinking, then the poor white is going to come after the rich white. So what they'll do is make the poor white at the bottom think his status is better than him, which is cap. Man, this is man's worth $5 billion, please. America wants him more than they want poor whites. Trust me. This is a book called White Trash. Many of you you swear that they have white privilege. You swear that all of them pass down generational wealth. Cap. White trash. A 400-year untold history of class in America. Cap. Many whites are broker than broke. Many of you are living better than them. That is cap. And it's to make you have low self-esteem about yourself. Cap. We may wring our hands about slavery in this country, thinking it was an institution of the whites, that restitution should be made to those poor, unfortunate, beaten black slaves of the past. But how would this be accomplished when there was blacks not only who had slaves, but also slave dealers in this country? What would the descendants think of Aunt Fandy Kennedy, a colored woman of Louisville, Kentucky, who brought several members of her own family? She owned Jim, her husband, a drunken cobbler. One day, Fanny went into her husband's shop with fire in her eyes and finger pointed. Jim, she said, if you don't have yourself, I'm gonna sell you down the river. Jim sat mute, trembling, as to be sent down river meant to be sold to a Negro trader and to be taken to the cotton fields of the far South. At the outbreak of the Civil War in Norfolk, Virginia, there was an industrious negress who was the huckster in the market and owned her husband. He was an ardent secessionist and was in full sympathy with the firing of Fort Sumter. After Norfolk was evacuated and occupied by federal troops, her husband was loud in expressing his Southern views. His outburst ended him in a chain gang. Let me read this slow so you understand what happened. So you understand what happened here. An outbreak of the Civil War in Norfolk, Virginia. There was an industrious negress who was a huckster in the market and owned her husband. He was an ardent secessionist and was full in sympathy with the firing of Fort Sumter. After Norfolk was evacuated and was occupied by federal troops, her husband was loud in expressing his Southern views. His outburst ended him in a chain gang. Someone tell me what happened there. Someone tell me what happened there. What happened? How did he end up in a chain gang? What happened? What happened here? After Norfolk was evacuated and was occupied by federal troops, her husband was loud in expressing his Southern views. His outburst ended him in a chain gang. What happened? What happened? No, no, no. She sold him. She sold him. Remember, she owned her husband. She sold him. He was yap yap. He was talking about femininity, masculinity. No, listen. No, 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 no. Let me read it to you again. No, no, no. Y'all not. Let me follow. Let me read it slow. Listen. Look. At the outbreak of the Civil War in Norfolk, Virginia, there was an industrious negress who was a huckster in the market and owned her husband. He was an ardent secessionist and was in full sympathy with the firing on Fort Sumter. After Norfolk was evacuated and was occupied by federal troops, her husband was loud in expressing his Southern views. His outburst ended him in a chain gang. She sold him, y'all. She sold him. She owned him. And he was talking about femininity and masculinity. And he was telling her she need to be submissive, blah, blah, blah. And she sold him. You feel me? Yeah. He was telling her that he was a high value man. He was talking that high value man shit and got sold. A colored man named DeBracca, who lived until 1906 near Mobile, Alabama, had been the owner of numerous slaves. Not long before his death, he was asked by a white acquaintance how he felt. He replied, "Oh, I'm feeling poorly. I'm getting old. They all tell me it was a good thing to free the Negroes, but I wish I had my niggers back once more." Oh my God. Right below, there is a book. You can't see it. It's a citation. It's by Calvin D. Wilson. The book is Negroes Who Owned Slaves. Let me put that on my book list. Oh, I'm going to start some trouble with this Black's Been Ballin'. Let me put that book on my book list. Calvin D. Wilson. This book came out in 1912. Negroes Who Owned Slaves. Calvin D. Wilson. One sec, y'all. Negroes Who Own Slaves. I will be looking for that PDF when I'm done here. Because somebody lying. You want me to take the position of the person as the slave. And I'm not. I am not. I'm trying to be the owner. Look, fortune favors the bold. The Negroes Who Own Slaves. All right. What did this man say, though? A colored man named DeBracca, who lived until 1906 near Mobile, Alabama, had been the owner of numerous slaves, the colored man. Not long before his death, he was asked by a white acquaintance how he felt. He replied, "Oh, I'm feeling poorly. I'm getting old. They all tell me it was a good thing to free the Negroes, but I wish I had my niggas back once more." Florida Olmsted, the author of the Cotton Kingdom, was told by a former slave that he had known of many black slave owners. He said they were very bad masters, very hard and cruel, hadn't any feelings. Quote, you might think that they would be good to their own nation, but they is not. I would tell you the truth. It's a fact. They was very bad masters. I'd rather be a servant to any man in the world than to a black man. If I was sold to a black man, I'd drown myself. I would that. I'd drown myself. Lord have his mercy. Oppression where? You have to own your place in America. Uh-huh. Let me read that again. Shout out to Black Femicide. So Larry Kroger wrote a good book called Black Slave Owners, Free Black Slave Masters of South Carolina. Oh, let me put that on my list. Let me put Larry Kroger. Larry Kroger, Black Slave Owners. I swear, man. Y'all be capping. Tariq Nasheed ain't put none of this in Hidden Colors. Got it. Wives selling husbands. Oh, man. Y'all trick with y'all narrative. Y'all want to be victims so bad. Nope. Right? Also, the Cotton Kingdom. You write that down. The Cotton Kingdom. I'm running this Blackspin ballin all year. Cotton Kingdom. All right. Listen to this, man. Listen to this. F.L. Olmsted, the author of the book Cotton Kingdom, was told by a former slave that he had known many black slave owners. What did this former slave say about the black slave owners? He said they were very bad masters, very hard and cruel, hadn't any feelings. You might think that they would be good to their own nation, but they is not. I will tell you the truth. It's a fact. They was very bad masters. I don't know how to speak in slave talk. I'd rather be a servant to any man in the world than to a black man. If I was sold to a black man, I'd drown myself. I would that. I'd drown myself. We will never know how many slaves owned by their own race availed themselves of the famous Underground Railroad. Jacob Gaskin of New Bern, South Carolina, owned his father. When Jacob did not act as the father thought he should, the father corrected his son. The son became angry and sold his father to a Negro speculator. Afterward, Jacob boasted that the old man had gone to the cornfields about New Orleans where they might learn him some manners. Y'all heard that? Jacob Gaskins of New Bern, South Carolina, owned his father. When Jacob did not act as the father thought he should, the father corrected his son. The son became angry and sold his father to a Negro speculator. Afterward, Jacob boasted the old man had gone to the cornfields about New Orleans where they might learn him some manners. Blacks been ballin'. He sold his daddy. This is about class. I wonder how many of us today would have cared about slavery had we been living in those days not so long ago. How active would we have been to make life better for black or whites when we consider what we presently allow? According to John Walsh of America's Most Wanted television program, there are over 1 million reported child abuse cases every year in this country. 0.15% of school children have been sexually abused by their teachers. 1,200 die a year from child abuse. For those who believe the killing of unborn babies is bad, 400 million women 40 million women have aborted their babies since Roe v. Wade of 1973. This is according to the Washington Times. According to the FBI statistics, 1 out of every 3 marriages in the U.S. has at least one incident of domestic violence. In Virginia, every 12 minutes, an abused person seeks help from domestic violence. And where are the tears for the 30,000 Christian black children thrown into slavery in the Sudan by the Islamic regime? Where is the anger of our African Americans when their own people are being skinned alive, burned, and crucified in Sudan? It seems their only interest is to blame whites for slavery of the past in the United States and care nothing about their own people of today. Blacks been balling. I keep telling y'all, blacks been balling. What did we learn here today? That when you say massa, you have to include not only the black man, the black woman too. Let's get some of the masses' names, shall we? Let's get some masses' names so we know. Right? Let's call some of the masters by name. How about Dilsey Pope? Dilsey Pope was a free woman, and when she was older, she brought the man she loved in order to marry him. Many state laws at the time would not allow slaves to be emancipated, so it was common for family or spouses to technically own their family. Dilsey owned her own house and land, and she also hired her husband as labor. What makes this particular situation so unique is that when Dilsey and her husband had a fight, Dilsey sold him to her white neighbor out of spite. Wait a minute. What is going on? What is going on? What is going on? Y'all keep talking this high value shit. What is you going on? Right? Hold on. Let me take that from the top. Dilsey Pope was born a free woman, and when she was older, she bought the man she loved in order to marry him. Many state laws at the time would not allow slaves to be emancipated, so it was common for family or spouses to technically own their family. Dilsey owned her own house and land, and she also hired her husband out as labor. What do y'all mean feminism started women being independent? What do y'all mean? What? Beyonce made them be independent. City girls. What? What? Feminism, hell? She owned her husband and land. She owned her own house and land. And she also hired her husband out as labor. What makes this particular situation so unique is that when Dilsey and her husband had a fight, she sold him to her white neighbor out of spite. While many modern women might wish to get rid of their husband, Dilsey truly takes the cake when it comes to this method. And also, like many other spouses, she later felt bad about the argument and tried to reconcile. The only problem is that when she went to buy her husband back and apologize, her neighbor refused to sell him. She sold your high value ass. Tell the red pill that they was out here getting sold by their wifey. What are y'all talking about? The modern woman. What are y'all talking about? The modern woman this, the modern woman that. What are you talking about? She sold her husband over an argument. Niggas be having children on chicks right now, and nothing happens, and they just get into a little fight and they get back together. Y'all don't know what y'all be talking about. Y'all deal with talking points. I'm gonna take your talking point and I'm gonna see where it stands in the annals of history. His ass got sold for an argument. Y'all talk black love, my black man. Man, please. First of all, she had her own house and own land, right? She bought him to marry him. If that's not the example of doing it your way, let me get that pipe. She bought it. Y'all girls is tripping. Yeah, he need to ask me to marry him. Man, buy that nigga and then get rid of him. Listen. It's actually backwards if you have the person protecting and providing for you. Whoever does that has the control, man. You're tripping. When you got the bread, you determine what happens. That's the rules. It's about class, y'all. Class. Just a little nugget for the woman. As long as you allow him to be big bank, you are at the mercy of whatever behavior he wants to have. Do you really think I would tell my daughter to let somebody fit the bill for her all the time so his tone can be a certain type of way? Hell no. My daughter would be Dizzy Pope. Dad, I like him. I'm finna buy him. And when I'm done with him, I'm selling him. God damn it. Blacks been balling. We just heard about Jacob Gaskins. Another one. Jacob Gaskin was born free only because his mother was a free woman. His father was still a slave at his birth. This was rather common at the time, and the mother eventually wanted to buy Jacob's father so that he would no longer have to work on a slave plantation. When Jacob grew older, his mother helped him buy his father. The family was happy with this arrangement. Although the father was technically a slave, still their slave until he attempted to do what all parents do: reprimand his son. This is when the story becomes notable. One day, Jacob's father scolded him after Jacob had misbehaved, as any good father would do. Jacob, a petulant, entitled boy, becomes so angry with his father that he sold him to a New Orleans trader and then later bragged to his friends and colleagues about sending his own father to be on a slave plantation in Louisiana. To what? What did he want his father to do? To learn him some manners. High value men been getting treated out here. Stop playing. This is American history. Husbands getting sold. Daddies getting sold to learn you some manners. Black men out here taking L's. Y'all want the woman to go back to being old school? What do you mean Disley out here sold her husband? Y'all must have forgot that grits got thrown on Al Green's back. Women today are much more cooperative and nicer than they was before. Y'all tripping. How the hell you know what women used to do and you was born in 1989 talking about, yeah, women back in the day, blah, blah, blah. How would you even know? You just got here. Fathers getting sold. Man, look, as I'm reading, the black man got to make a comeback. Niggas is taking L's out here. Man, it got to be some bossed up shit. All right, because let me see. The first one is Dilsey Pope sold her husband from mouthing off. He came in the house talking about, I'm a high value man. You ain't feminine, fit, or nothing, right? Look, and then down here, the black man tries to check his son and he gets sold. When did the Negro have power? These are L's. All right, let's go. Look, it's not looking good. All right, let's see if Nat Butler can revive the dads and the husbands. Nat Butler makes the list for his special type of manipulative cruelty that he showed toward his fellow humans. Butler was one of the worst kind of slave owners. Not only did he participate in the trade, but he actively tricked slaves into running away so that he could sell them back to their masters. Damn, all right, that's pretty clever. Butler would convince a slave to hide on his property. Butler would then speak to slave owners to find out what the reward was for returning him. If the reward was high, he would simply return the slave for the money. If the price was low, Butler would buy the slave, then resell him to slave dealers down south for a profit. He gained a bad reputation in his country for his scheming actions, and many attempted to hurt him, even murder him for revenge. Who are y'all going to get these reparations from? That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know. Right? We like to pretend and make a romantic history of this thing called white and black. We like to paint white people as the evil people, and we like to paint black folks as the people that is just want to be left alone, that's just so caring and nurturing. Nat Butler shows you different. Nat Butler would convince a slave to run away, then try to sell the slave back to the owner. Okay. Justice Angel and Mistress L. Horry. What about these? Justice Angel and Mistress L. Horry were wealthy black masters Hold on. Justice Angel and Mistress L. Horry were wealthy black masters. There's that master word again. Were wealthy black masters who each owned 84 slaves, or 168 together. They were located in Colton District, now Charleston County, South Carolina, 1830. Because most slave owners only had a handful of slaves, Angel and Horry were considered economic elite and were called slave magnates. It's not betrayal. They aren't your people. That's what we're learning here. Is that this world is have and have not. Dog eat dog. Your people are your selected tribe. And we even see some people that were mouthing off and got their ass sold. Don't play with me. Husband got sold, daddy got sold. I ain't dealing with all that shit. Dilsey sold her husband because of an argument. First of all, she seen him and was like, damn, he fine. She bought him to marry him. He was a slave before she bought him. She bought him and he was her slave. And he talked that high value shit one night. He said you wasn't fit, feminine, you ain't cooperative. He forgot what this was. And he got his ass sold. Jacob's daddy, the mother and son, helped buy the father out of slavery. So he wanted to be head of the household. And he was talking to his son a certain kind of way. And he got his ass sold. I'm not even capping. The black man to this day is still trying to get some power in his household, and ain't nobody listening. It's going like wah, wah, wah. So now you have the black groups that are like, oh yeah, winter's coming. Yeah, you're going to come back to the negotiating table. High value, blah, blah, blah. Nobody still cares. Nicki Minaj just told their entire group, eat a dick. Oh, God. Right? None of the... When they sit down with a celebrity woman, they don't talk like that. Kevin Samuels called Nicki Minaj a 9. Right? But in the red pill spaces, she dates Pookies, makeup on her face, BBL. None of that rhetoric when he was talking to her. To this day, you see? History got a timeline to it. You see? I'm just laughing. It's interesting to me. Ha! So let's run this back real quick because hold on. Justice Angel and Mistress L. Horry were wealthy black masters who owned 84 slaves or 168 together. Heavy on the wealthy black masters. They were located in Colton District, now Charleston County in South Carolina in 1830. Because most slave owners only had a handful of slaves, Angel and Hori were considered economic elite and were called slave magnates. Slave magnates. Whoa. Slaves were simply labor to Angel and Hori, and they considered them property, hunting down runaway slaves and punishing misbehaving ones. While there is no evidence that they treated their slaves more harshly than white owners, they were known to own them strictly for business purposes. They brought, sold, and traded them like property, and misbehaving slaves were punished harshly for interfering with their profits. There was no brother, sister, none of that. None of that. Blacks been ballin'. That's class. Let me remind you, let's take it back so you understand. Let me take it back. Pookie, right, is at the bottom of poverty. He's the undesirable. A step above him, surprisingly, would be James Evans and his family. Now, even though they were very poor, they had, quote, morality, and there was love in their home to the point where their children can have upward mobility. They are in a different position than him, okay? So he goes to here when he gets his life together. These people are trying to go here. Carl Winslow worked for the city. His wife, Harriet, was a homemaker. He had very good children. They lived in a cool area, and the mother lived with them, right? They are trying to go here. From job to career. These people in upward middle class are trying to go here. This is the entertainment class. They are in a position to have assets. But the pinnacle of class is this, billionaire status. Do you see the class? You see how it goes? From here to here to here to here to here, and this is the pinnacle. Why am I saying that? Because to Angel and Hori, slaves were simply labor, nothing else. They were property, right? They bought, sold, and traded them like property, and misbehaving slaves were punished harshly for interfering with profits. But y'all telling me this was about race, though. But what does this open up say? Justice and Angel Mistress and Mistress L. Hori were wealthy black masters. Oh, the foundation of America is race. No, it's not. It's class. Who else? Widow C. Richards and son P.R. Richards, P.C. Richards. What about them? In 1860, slave owners, white or black, owned 1 to 5 slaves on average. About 28% of the free black population in New Orleans at the time owned slaves, with at least 6 owning 65 or more. C. Richards and her son, P.C., go above and beyond these 6 slave owners by owning over twice as many. The widow and her son operated a large sugar plantation together and owned more slaves. My fault. The widow and son operated a large sugar plantation together and owned more than all black slave owners in Louisiana in 1860, topping off that 100 152. C.R. Richards and her son, P.C. Mother and son business. 152 slaves. Lord have mercy. Blacks been balling. The Pendarvis family. Let's find out about them. During the 1730s, the Pendarvis family was one of the most prominent in the South, owning the biggest rice plantations in the Palmetto region and over 123 slaves. They dominated Colton County, now the Charleston area, and became the wealthiest one of the wealthiest slave-owning families in the South. What is ironic is that this family of wealthy black slave owners was given their wealth accidentally when a will was created that gave the estate of Joseph Pendarus to his illegitimate children with his slave, Parthena. Despite the family's own origins, all Pendarus estates continue to use slave labor as they took over the Palmetto state. So when y'all say massa, make sure you include yourself. The Pendarvis family. Marie Therese Matior. Man, it's a lot of women on this list. Marie was living in the Kingdom of Congo when she met her future husband, who fell deeply in love with her. In a time where interracial marriage was considered wrong and immoral, Marie married a white Frenchman named Claude Matior and moved to Louisiana with him and their children. Because their marriage was not approved by society, Marie technically remained a slave to her husband. Years later, after 6 children, Marie was finally freed, and she and her husband divorced. Claude left to France, where he married a French woman. Marie wasn't left with nothing, however, and started a plantation that initially dealt in tobacco. Under Marie's leadership, the Matior family prospered. The family grew. Eventually, they owned more slaves than any other family in their county, with the number being reported at 287 by 1830. There isn't much evidence of harsh treatment to their slaves, but the Matiors were notorious for buying extra slaves to do the hardest task on the plantation and then returning them after the work was finished. This prevented them from having their own slaves to do the dirty work. First of all, she was divested. She was divested. She married a Frenchman, divorced a Frenchman. Then she was left with nothing. She started her own plantation, right? And wind up having 287 slaves by 1830. Ooh, I don't know. Whew. Ooh, buddy. Anton Doubleset. Anton Doubleset was born a free man to free parents, inherited a large sugar plantation called Cedar Grove from his father. Under his father, the plantation was small and contained only a few slaves. Under Anton's leadership, it grew by 1860. He owned 100 slaves and had one of the largest sugar plantations in Louisiana. He was extremely wealthy, even more so than any of his white neighbors. Hold on. He was extremely wealthy, even more so than any of his white neighbors. Hold on. He was extremely wealthy, even more so than any one of his white neighbors. Let me do my Dougie Fresh. This is me bringing the record back, y'all. This is me DJing. He was extremely wealthy. He was extremely wealthy. More than any of his white neighbors. More than any of his white neighbors. Blacks been balling. He was extremely wealthy, even more so than any of his white neighbors. His plantation was worth $264,000, while the average income of his neighbors in the South was only $3,978. The black man in America cannot consider himself high value until you're doing better than whites. You can't judge your high value based on these tiers from Pookie to this, to this, to this, to this. This dude right here is doing better than 99% of white men in America. He is high value. Anton Douglasset is high value. Why is he high value? He's extremely wealthy, even more so than any of his white neighbors. His plantation was worth $264,000, while the average income of his white neighbors in the South was only around $3,978. This nigga's talking that high value shit. After marrying a wealthy black woman, come on, man. You see what I'm saying? You see class? But they will tell you that real high value men don't care about your money or your education or none of that. We just care about how you look. Really? After marrying a wealthy black woman, remix. After marrying a wealthy black woman, after marrying a wealthy black woman, I got it. Let me get Diddy. Let me get Diddy on the remix. Take that, take that. You do my take that dance. Take that, take that. Playboy, Playboy, you gonna get some cheesecake for me, Playboy? Take that, take that, take that, take that, take that, take that. Yeah, we don't care about your money. PhD, we don't care about your PhDs. Really? But everybody that I'm showing you in this Black Men Ballin' series, education was on point, money was on point, real estate was on point, right? What man in the world besides the American Negro will say, we don't care about the person that we're going to have a babies with, education? Think about that for a second. Think about the logic about that. You don't care about the person's smarts. You only care about something that actually depreciates, which is how they look. Who in the world scoffs at a PhD? Where is that small potatoes? In what arena does that not mean anything? So we know those that are talking what class of people they come from. Do you think if you're the daughter of him, does he want his, if you are, if Theo, right? does he want Theo to marry a woman that went to college? Does he want Theo to marry a woman that is seeking a PhD? Do you know what that would do to their family if Theo mates and has a child with a woman that has a PhD? We're talking pedigree here. So if Theo came back to his father and said, yeah, Dad, I don't really care if she goes to college or not. She's beautiful. What do you think Cliff Huxtable would have said? They were people at a certain class. The only person that's not going to care about that even James wants Michael to pick the right person. James doesn't want Michael to have a baby right now. James wants Michael to find a woman that is smart. Carl Winslow does not want Eddie to bring home a woman that is not smart. Now, men in entertainment will quote date down. Men in entertainment will pick a woman out of the strip club, but entertainers are a different class than them, and them. See, he's educated, but kind of got the same mating patterns. A woman don't got to be anything. But here's the thing, though. Men from this class and from men from this class are the men complaining, though. Right? Because the thing about the men from this class, the billionaire men, is they're late bloomers with women. So even though they are extremely intelligent in tech and investing and in their career fields, they didn't have access to the women that they wanted when they were younger. So when they get their big paydays, they make the mistake of going against above the neck mating, and they pay for it. So do these entertainers. They pay for it. Oh, where was I? Oh yeah. He was extremely wealthy, and even more so than any of his white neighbors in the in any of his white neighbors. He was extremely wealthy, even more so than any of his white neighbors. His plantation was worth $264,000, while the average income of his neighbors in the South was only around $3,978. After marrying a black woman, his land expanded, and after his death, Duplessis was considered the wealthiest black slave owner in Louisiana. Hold on for a second. After marrying a wealthy black woman, his lands expanded. Oh, hypergamy. Oh, okay. Hypergamy. So he married up, huh? I mean, I can read, right? After marrying a wealthy black woman, his lands expanded. That means that he was hypergamous, huh? Blacks been balling. So, just so we're clear, any dudes talking about they don't care about a woman's money, what she does for herself, education, they don't care about none of that, right? The only thing they care about is her looks. They represent this class right here. get a good look at it. See, because he don't care, right? Anybody could smoke with him. He don't care. Anybody can hang out with him. He don't care. But James Evans is trying to move up in the world. So he would like his children to make sound mating decisions. The Winslows are one step away from being this right here. So Carl wants Eddie to find a woman that is extremely smart, because guess what? Carl can die at any time and they can go right back here, right? So he wants Eddie to mate correctly, and he damn sure wants Theo to mate correctly. And if Theo would have came and said, Dad, I don't care about a woman's PhD, Cliff would have sat his ass down, and you know it. William April Ellison. In 1862, William Ellison was one of the large slave owners in South Carolina, as well as the wealthiest. He was born a slave and was given the name April after the month he was born. He was luckier than most and was bought by a white slave owner named William Ellison, who took the time to educate him. When he was 26 years old, he was freed by his master and began his expansive cotton plantation. As a free man, he had managed to change to William Ellison, that of his former master. What makes Ellison so despicable and earns him the number 2 spot on this list is how he collected his wealth. Ellison was known to have made a large proportion of his money as a slave breeder. Tariq Nasheed never told you that the Negro was over here buck breaking too. Uh-oh. Holy moly. Yikes. What does the chick say on Scooby-Doo? Jinkies. Jinky. Whoa. Hold on. What makes Ellison so despicable and earns him the number 2 spot on this list is how he collected his wealth. He was known to made a large proportion of his money as a slave breeder. Jinkies. Oh, no, you're right. It's this sound. Zoinks. And I would have got away with it too. See, look. You pro-blacks would have got away with it too if it wasn't for me. If it wasn't for me exposing all the shit, you would have got away with it too. Oh man, you race baiters would have got away with it too. Right? Hey. They pull off the mask and shit. Who's behind this? And it's me. And I'm looking. And it would have got away with it too if it wasn't for him. Yeah. Okay. I'm just saying though, how you gonna deal with this? You cannot no longer say, but the white man, nothing. You can't say anything. Let me read that one more time. What makes Ellison so despicable and earns him the number 2 spot on this list is how he collected his wealth. Ellison was known to have made a large proportion of his money as a slave breeder. And we would have got away with it too if it wasn't for him. Who's behind that mask? Who is it? Let's see who's causing all the trouble. It's Ken Billions. I got my mask. I got my do-rag on. William Ellison. Jacob Gaston. Disley Polk. All rats. And I would have got away with it too. Who's behind that mask? It must be a white man behind that mask saying those things. Who is it? It's Ken Billions. Guilty as charged. It's me. It is I. I'm sorry. Breeding slaves was illegal in many southern states, but Ellison sold almost all females born, keeping a select few for future breeding. He kept many of the young males as they were considered useful on his plantation. Ellison was known to be a harsh master, and his slaves were almost starved and extremely poor clothed. He kept a windowless building on his property for specific purposes of chaining his misbehaving slaves. Whoa, buddy. And who's number one on the list? Anthony Johnson. Yikes. Zoinks. Oh, hold on, Dan. I didn't you didn't see that. Okay. Ellison was so despicable. Oh, okay. What makes Ellison so despicable and earns him the number 2 spot of this is how he collected his wealth. Ellison was known to have made a large proportion of his money as a slave breeder. Breeding slaves was illegal in many southern states, but Ellison secretly sold almost all females born, keeping a select few for future breeding. He kept many of the young males as they were considered useful on his plantation. Ellison was known to be a harsh master, and his slaves were almost starved and extremely poorly clothed. He kept a windowless building on his property for specific purpose of chaining his misbehaving slaves. And number 1 on the list, Anthony Johnson. Nobody on this list has affected the history of slavery quite as much as Anthony Johnson. He is rumored to be the first Black man to arrive in Virginia, as well as the first Black indentured servant in America. He was also the first Black man to gain his freedom and the first to own land. He is a true pioneer of first. Johnson couldn't stop there. Ironically, he became the first Black slave owner, and it was the court case that solidified slavery in America. Wait a minute. This man went to court? Whoa, look at the year, y'all. In 1635, Johnson was freed and given a 250-acre plantation where he was master over both Black and white servants. Hold on. We learned today that when you say massa, you got to say, put the Black man in there and Black woman, because they some massas. In 1635, Johnson was freed and given a 250-acre plantation where he was master over both Black and white. In 1654, Johnson sued his neighbor in a case that would change America's history forever. Johnson's servant, John Kosar, claimed he was an indentured servant who had worked several years past the terms of his indenture for Johnson and was now working for Johnson's neighbor Parker. Anthony Johnson, a black man, went to court, a white court, right? Sued Parker, stated that Kosar was his servant in perpetuity, and the courts ruled in his favor. Kosar had to return to Johnson, and that case established the principle in America that one person is able to own another person for the rest of their life. Macaulay Culkin. Black man, y'all be taking L's out here. You see? I don't want to hear nothing. Not a peep. Not not even a nothing. I don't want to hear a nothing. Nothing. Not a whisper. Not a sound. Not a nothing. Nothing. Is because what you're looking at, you have played not just a major role, a primary role in the America that you say you hate. The America that you say that you hate, you help craft it. Triple B, blacks been balling. And class is the original foundation of America. Money, land, and property, pedigree, status. Let's be clear. Let me slow grind this for you, right? I want you to understand that this man went to the same court that they say is not in favor of blacks, right? In 1634, Johnson was freed from indentured servitude and given a 250-acre plantation where he was master over both black and white servants. Read it yourself. See, there's a reason why they promote the victim narrative to you. Because once you believe that, you believe you're under people. And that tricks you out of upward mobility. It never been about no brother. That shit only comes from the civil rights generation where people were forced to work together. That was by force. Even Black Wall Street was by force. They had no other choice. Snot wasn't because of the kindness of their heart. They had to do that. You can't count that. What do you do when nobody is pressing up against you? You see, are niggas working together now? No. Why? Because nothing's bothering them. In 1635, let's slow read this. Johnson was freed and given land. So this is what they don't really deal with in the 1619 project. They don't deal with class. They try to make it seem from the gate this was just about race. No, it wasn't. Race, as we understand it, is from 1671 and beyond. But the original sin of America is property ownership and class and status, right? Because in 1834, right, and this is after the so-called 1619, Johnson was freed and given a 250-acre plantation where he was master of both black and white servants. In 1954, Johnson sued his neighbor in a case that would change America's history forever. John's servant, John Kosar, claimed he was an indentured servant who had worked several years past terms of his indenture for Johnson and was now working for Johnson's neighbor, Parker. Johnson sued in court, stated that Kosar was his servant in perpetuity, and the courts ruled in his favor. What? Kosar had to return to Johnson, and the case established the principle in America that one person is able to own another person for the rest of her life, rest of their life. Woogity woogity nigger, woogity woogity, woogity woogity nigger. Anthony Johnson, William Ellison. Hey, who's that over there behind the mask? That must be a white man. That gotta be. I know it's Ben Shapiro under there. No, it's Larry Elder. It's Jesse Lee Peterson. Who's under there? Woogity woogity nigger, woogity woogity. Right? Let's see who's the masked man under there. Ken Billions? It's me. Surprise. Surprise. Surprise, it's me, right? Why? Why am I doing all this? Because Bruce Lipton talks about the biology of belief. And the things that are affecting modern Negroes, it's not so-called poverty. The poverty lives inside of the Negro because the Negro does not know its place in America. But if I just showed you that Anthony Johnson was responsible, had a hand in it for setting this thing in motion, then the black man and woman can no longer be a victim in America because he technically is your ancestor too. William Ellison, if you're going to claim everybody, he's your ancestor too. Daisy Poe, that sold her own husband, he's your ancestor too. Jacob Gaskin, that sold his father into slavery, he's your ancestor too. Your history is just not the people that have been beaten up. Your history is also the people that have done the beating. So, America's yours. How could you hate America? Because it did what to you? You just was on the wrong side of history. Right? You just was on the wrong side of history. That is the Blacks Been Ballin' series. Casket closed. Right? Right? Casket closed. Right? So, let's review real quick. What class are you in today? The Pookie, which is a undesirable class, heavy substance abuse on the bottom, heavy rely on the government for assistance. These are people, when they do urban planning or when the state steps in to change the neighborhood and everything, no one bats an eye when these people are missing. I'm not talking about the humanity aspect. I'm talking about this is the game. Are you this? Are you here, which is a step above the Pookie? That, you know what? Your family doesn't make a lot of money. You live in a harsh area, but it's still love in your household though. Your father and mother don't have much education, but y'all got love in the house. Y'all got traditions in the house. And that love is enough to catapult the children past the parents. When the children go past the parents, they go here. And then when they look back on the way their parents live, they got respect for it because it's this. Now, it's important when you're here and coming here that you keep your family together and no one slips here. Because when someone slips here, it throws off the family. And here, I mean street behavior, gang banging, drugs, jail, everything. So you got to keep your family together. So when you're here, you got to make sure that your family doesn't slip into this. And you got to make sure that your family doesn't have survivor's guilt where your upward mobility is handicapped because you are trying to take care of people from this class. And that is one of the reasons why people from here cannot excel, because they have him sleeping on their couch. So you go from here to here. You working for the city. Remember, James doesn't have no education. So he takes on any odd job, any hustle that he could do. But Carl has an education, or Carl works for the city, right? He has a pension. All right. If he's killed at work, there will be a city ceremony, a 21-gun salute for him. He's in a position where his children are free enough to do everything. He has a household full of people, and none of them are here. You see? Right? So are you here? And the key from here is to get here to where you have a career. A lawyer and a doctor is a career. It's not a job. So Carl works for the city, but it's a job. They have careers. Now, a step above from here is to try to get one of the children into the entertainment class, because this class is what has influence over Black America, right? And you can have a career in this class, right? But you'll have influence over the rest of the people. And you're actually in a position to actually invest your money a little more, and you can begin to set up assets because the money comes more plentiful when you're in entertainment. And the pinnacle and the apex of class in America, Black America specifically, is him. No one even knew who he was until he was giving out free shit. Right? Right? So that's class in America. And believe it or not, whether what you think your life is being defined by race. It's not. It's class. Now, what a lot of you experience is prejudice. Race, a racist will mess up your money. A prejudiced person just don't like you. But many of you, no disrespect, are not doing anything important enough to even bump into a true racist. The racist is going to stop you from getting political power to fix the potholes in your area. You are encountering prejudiced people that don't have any power. The racist has the ability to affect your upward mobility, but you can get past it. So what race? Somebody called you a name. Right? Right? So you have a decision to make. You can keep believing in your mind that we is a thing that is based on your color, or your we is selective and not collective. Look, let me tell you this, man. I'm come from humble beginnings. I ain't a superhero. The type that you think. I'm not on Marvel. I'm not on DC. I don't have powers like Superman. I can't do the things that Batman do. I can't climb walls like Spider-Man. You know what? I don't have that kind of ability. I don't have those gadgets. I can't pew, pew, pew Spider-Man. I don't have cerebral like Professor X. I'm just a nigga with waves. My name's Ken Billions. Decide. Right? Selective, collective. Peace.
Biggest game, it's like, remember we was all back in high school? Some of you may be still in high school or whatever, but follow me. We had the regular class and then you had honors class. And I feel like Ken Billion's game is nothing but honors class. Everything that you learned in life and been through in life, or whatever he's talking about at that certain time. And, like point of reference, game for guys. Everybody learn game from somebody and this and that, and it's all over the place. But once I listened to Game for Guys, it was like being in an honors class. Ken is a brilliant guy. I still listen to him to this day. Listen to him almost every other day, and I stay studying. And if I look at a video and he's giving us homework, I'm gonna look through that video. I'm gonna write my notes down. I'm gonna do my homework. Then I'm gonna watch the next video. I mean, you just can't get enough of the game and the knowledge that this brother brings to you. He's allowed me to look back into history, my own history. I found out about black people that I never even knew about, black millionaires and people like that. Recently, I learned about the reticular activating system, and that's something that I'm studying up on as we speak. Which I plan on reprogramming myself. You know what I'm saying? So overall, the Ken Billions game has done a lot for me. It's allowed me to elevate as a man, as a father. It just allowed me to be more excited about life and not be in the program of being oppressed. And that's one of the main things for me that I have to say that this game has done for me. I'm so glad that I ran across it.